Research is an important part of everyday life, but many people may not realize just how important it is. Research is behind medicine, technology, and everyday statistics. Today we will explore what research is and the purpose that it serves in a brief video. Research is defined by Merriam-Webster as an investigation or experimentation aimed at the discovery and interpretation of facts, revision of accepted theories or laws in light of the new facts, or practical application of such new or revised theories or laws. The main categories of statistics are qualitative and quantitative. A research experiment or study falls under the qualitative category, which evaluates the quality or effectiveness of a certain product, item, or medicine, or the quantitative category, which evaluates the amount of people, objects, etc. that relate to the topic. An example of a qualitative research experiment could be if someone was trying to figure out the quality of goldfish versus an off-brand. The researcher could randomly select people to participate and randomly give the participants either regular goldfish or the off-brand, without telling them which they have. The participant would then rate the taste from 1 to 10, and the data would be collected to decide which average rating was higher. This experiment would be figuring out which type of goldfish people liked better, which would help researchers decide on the taste quality of each, making the experiment qualitative. An example of a quantitative research study would be if someone wanted to figure out how many almonds an adult chipmunk would usually store in their mouth at one time. They would randomly select chipmunks from a certain population, and they would give each one many almonds to put inside their mouth. They would record the amount for each one so that they could find an average number and range to know how many almonds most chipmunks put in their mouth. Since this has to do with the amount of almonds, it is experimenting to find a number, making it quantitative. There are many different ways to obtain data. A researcher can conduct a case study, which focuses on one individual and deeply analyzes the situation. Data can also be taken from a certain group over time. This is called longitudinal. The researcher would collect data from a certain place over the next few years. This could be somewhere like a hospital or school, and they would see if there were any changes in the data and what the changes were due to. Researchers can also use data from the past to support their hypothesis. One very important way of collecting data is by conducting an experimental research. In this case, a researcher would create an entire system to find new data. This is useful when a researcher cannot find data on what they were looking for, or if they are testing something new. For example, if there was a new type of gardening soil that was supposed to create taller sunflowers, they could test whether or not it actually worked. To do this, they would need a hypothesis to test. A hypothesis is a testable statement that cannot yet be proven. This statement is usually a prediction of what the researcher thinks is going to happen. In this case, the hypothesis would be something like, sunflowers grown with gardening soil will grow significantly taller than the sunflowers grown with regular soil. The researcher will have to manipulate the experiment so that the results would only be caused by the variable they are testing for. They would grow sunflowers with the new soil and sunflowers with the old soil. In this scenario, growing for different variables would mean that the researcher must water the flowers with the same amount of water at the same time. They must make sure that they get the same amount of sunlight, space, and soil. The only thing that would be different is the type of soil. The researchers would then grow a set amount of sunflowers with and without the soil, and they would measure the height of each one multiple times. The regular soil would serve as the control, which is what is typically used, while the new soil would serve as the test variable since it is not typically used. After a few months, when the flowers should be fully grown, the researchers would have the data that they could use to determine if the flowers were of very different heights. They could find these results by doing statistical tests on the data. In this case, if all the flowers grown using the gardening soil were over a foot taller than the flowers grown without the gardening soil, the researcher would end up finding a significant difference. This would prove their hypothesis to be true based on their experiment. This concludes the explanation of research and experimental research. I hope this was enjoyable and helpful.